G'day everyone, it's Taylor MB here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you my Magicka Dragonite PvP build, very creatively named the Firestarter. Now a lot of you would have already seen this build in action in some of my PvP videos, and you do know what the build is, but today I'm going to be getting into the really nitty gritty detail so that you guys really understand how this build functions. Now it's not an 100% unique build, but I've definitely brought my own flair and playstyle to it. So there's a few different ways you can build a DPS orientated Magicka DK for PvP, and I've chosen to focus on two aspects to get the most effectiveness out of it. I've got a large number of damage over time abilities, and I'm combining that with maximum power lash uptime to get the most heals and most DPS. So now for those of you who might not be 100% familiar with Magicka DK, Power Lash is a proc of our Flame Lash skill that deals additional damage and gives you between a 2 and a 2.5k heal per second while in PvP for 3 seconds. So the focus of this build is maximizing Power Lash uptime. That gives us the greatest DPS and it gives us amazing offensive heals as well, which really helps keep the opponent under pressure, not giving them any window of opportunity to do damage to you. Now how we achieve this Power Lash uptime. The first two methods are pretty standard for any DK build. First one is using Fossilize to root the enemy, hit them with a Flame Lash, this sets them off balance, which then procs your Power Lash. The second, when they have CC immunity up, is Burn in Talons. Root them, hit them with a Flame Lash, procs a Power Lash. The third method we used is a charged Lightning Staff with a Shock Enchant, and then using the Wall of Elements skill. So any enemy inside Lightning Wall of Elements that gets concussed put on them immediately gets put off balance. So concussed is the status effect of shock attacks. So even though the Lightning Wall of Elements is a shock attack, the chance to proc from an AoE DOT is very, very low, whereas the chance to proc from a shock damage enchant is 20%. Now we increase this 20% by having a charge trait on our Lightning Staff, which increases the chance to apply the status effect by 200% on a purple staff. That will be 220% on a gold staff. And we also have the Destruction Start passive Elemental Force, which increases it by another 100%. So this means every time we hit an enemy with Wall of Elements, as long as the enchant is not on cooldown, we will proc concussed on them, and then the Wall of Elements will put them off balance, which means we can immediately hit them with a Power Lash. It is a great way to open up an engagement. It immediately pumps out high burst DPS, a good DOT, and makes you start off with an amazing heal over time to negate any burst they do back to you. Now the other portion of this build is the high amount of damage over time abilities that we utilize. This, combined with our high Power Lash uptime, plus the wearing of Valken Scoria, gives us huge offensive pressure, giving the opponent very little time to do damage back to us. So have a look at the damage over times we have present. We have Wall of Elements, which I've already mentioned. We also have Engulfing Flames, which not only increases the damage your opponents take from flame abilities by 10%, but it's also an AoE that sticks to them. So if you're fighting, say, a Nightblade or someone who's trying to kite around and Wall of Elements they're just not staying in your Wall of Elements no matter how much you root them, and Engulfing Flames is a DOT that is going to stick on them no matter where they move. We're also using Volatile Armor, which is also our source of Major Ward, and this also gives us another damage over time to help proc that Scoria and just keep that pressure up. On our front bar we have Burning Embers. This is probably the strongest damage over time that a DK has, and it's also an offensive heal over time, similar to Rally. So you pop it on an opponent, and in 10 seconds when it expires, or if you reapply it, it will give you a really amazing burst heal. And you can pop this on as many opponents as you like. You can just chain them together and get huge 7, 8, 10k heals back to back with this skill. We also have Burn-In Talons, which also provides an additional damage over time. Finally, we have Flames of Oblivion. Now this is a pretty unique damage over time ability, as in it only procs once every 5 seconds. So it also makes it kind of like a burst damage over time. So you can time your other burst around when you know this is going to be proccing, and surprise a lot of opponents with the high damage. This also passively grants us Major Prophecy for that additional spell crit. And we also have Devouring Swarm as our front bar ultimate. Obviously that's not going to be a constant source of Valken Scoria proc, but it's just another damage over time to add to our arsenal. So now we'll just have a quick look at our non-damage over time skills that I have slotted. I have mentioned some of them already, but I wanted to discuss them a little more with you guys. On our back bar we have Elusive Mist. Now this is just great for repositioning. It's also really good against other Magicka Dragon Knights, so if they get you taloned or rooted from behind, this is your repositioning tool if you don't have any stamina to dodge roll. It's also the only way that you can kite as a Magicka Dragon Knight, so it's really important for open world Cyrodiil when you need to reposition. You can also use it to clear a Magicka Sork's Daedric Minefield, very effective there. And it obviously grants you Major Expedition as well. The other non-damage over time skill we have in our back bar is Dragon Fire Scale. This is just really helpful for reflecting all those stamina Nightblades that are out there, spamming snipe at you when you're already fighting someone. Obviously it is also very useful to reflect a Templar's Vampire's Bane, or a Sork's Crystal Frag, or a Shock Reach, or an Aurora Javelin. So it reflects an amazing array of skills, and it's a really effective skill. Absolutely recommend people to slot this one. And then we also combine that with our back bar ultimate, Ferocious Leap. So let's say you're in a 1v1 with someone, and then you get the notorious 1vx snipe spammer coming at you from stealth. Quickly stun the person that you're fighting, switch to your back bar, pop your wings, wait 2 or 3 seconds so they can get more snipes in. Usually they won't notice that you're reflecting. And then right as they've got a few snipes traveling back at themselves, Dragon Leap them, and then they're basically already dead and you just need to execute. So combining wings with Dragon Leaps is an incredibly powerful tool to even the odds in a 1vx, to get rid of that annoying snipe spammer who's always going to be standing outside of your standard range. Then on our front bar we also have Fossilize as our primary CC. For anyone that plays with high ping, you'll find that Fossilize is the best way to be able to consistently proc a Power Lash. I did play with Stonefist for quite a while, but I was finding people would break free of it before it had even animated on my screen, so proccing a Power Lash was completely out of the question. So if you play with high ping and you're having trouble with Power Lash procs, then use Fossilize as your main CC, because it also roots, so it means an opponent has to do 2 things in order to get out of it, which gives you plenty of time to proc a Power Lash. We also have Flame Lash on our front bar. Not a damage over time, but as we discussed, very important for, well, absolutely necessary for Power Lash. And then our front bar ultimate, Devouring Swarm. We've already covered this as a damage over time, but I wanted to give it a special mention because it does give amazing heals for when you're playing outnumbered. You may have noticed that this build does not have a burst heal. No coagulating blood, no green dragon blood. So for healing, we rely on Power Lash, Burning Embers, and in emergencies, using a Tripod and Devouring Swarm. Now we've already talked about Burning Talons as well, but some of you may have been asking why Burning Talons and not Choking Talons. Well, this is a nice segue into what sets we're using here. The first set being Wizard's Riposte. So this obviously gives you minor maim, just like Choking Challenge, but it gives you 100% uptimes, whereas Choking Challenge, it will only apply for as long as they are rooted. Now for anyone who's been following my YouTube videos or been following the forums, I've performed a very detailed analysis of defensive sets in ESO, and Wizard's Riposte does come out on top, especially in no CP PvP, where I generally play. So I'll link that in the descriptions and you guys can go check that out. I'm not going to go into it in detail at the moment. But I chose to wear a light armor defensive set so I can still have the tankiness of heavy armor with getting all the benefits of light armor. And then our burst monster set, as we discussed previously, is Valken Scoria. It's going to be proccing consistently off all the damage over times we have going. And for anyone with a keen eye, you may have noticed I don't have Major Sorcery slotted either, and I'm not getting it from tripods. So my final set is Rattle Cage. Now this does give slightly more spell damage than say Julianos, but we lose out on the crits. And the reason I'm running this set is for that amazing utility of freeing up a skill slot. This isn't going to be giving you the best damage. You can get more from Burning Spellweave or from Sun. But I'm very lazy with my characters, and I do not like changing builds between Battlegrounds and between Cyrodiil and between duels. So I slot Rattle Cage, and that gives me amazing flexibility in open world Cyrodiil. It gives me all these damage over times for any circumstances. It gives me wings to deal with primarily Nightblades. It means I can slot these buff skills that are giving me Major Sorcery as well, that are giving Engulfing Flames for extra flame damage. If I wasn't wearing Rattle Cage, I would have to drop one of these skills, and DKs have so many amazing skills that I just did not want to drop any of them. So I chose to run Rattle Cage. It is a slight stat loss, but you make up for this just by having amazing utility and flexibility with all the different skills that you can run. Now this is a light armor build, so I'm running Rattle Cage on 1 weapon, 3 juries, and chest piece, and this gives me the light armor passives, which is very important for a Magicka Dragon Knight. Our skills are prohibitively expensive. If you're wearing heavy armor, you basically have to wear Seducers to sustain to give that percentage damage reduction. And that's where this build started. Heavy armor, Seducers. But it wasn't working as effectively, so I had to look around, and the Evocation passive for light armor reduces Magicka cost for your abilities by 2% per piece worn is massive. So I'm in a 5-1-1 setup at the moment, and it's reducing the cost of my abilities by 10%, which is huge. So that actually makes it quite easy to sustain as a Magicka Dragon Knight wearing light armor. Now just having a quick look at some of the other things in the build. At the moment, I'm running a Maelstrom's Lightning Staff back bar, but this is actually the second best option you can run. The better option would be to run a Rattle Cage Lightning Staff, but just like I am with my builds, I'm a very lazy farmer. So I stopped as soon as I got all the Rattle Cage pieces I needed, and just threw on a Maelstrom's Lightning Staff. So I never thought I'd say this, but Maelstrom is second best for this build. As far as armor traits go, we're running 6-piece Sturdy and 2-piece Impen. Now you can mix this up however you like. If you find you're taking too much damage, then put on a few more Impen pieces. If you find you're running out of stamina too quickly, then drop some more Sturdy pieces on. All my enchants are tri-stat, combined with tri-stat food, and as I mentioned previously, tri-stat pots. You use all your resources equally in this build, so it's very important to tri-stat everything. Enchants for Jury, we have 2 spell damage and 1 regen. And our one hand trait is infused with an Oblivion enchant. Now I've swapped this one around quite a bit. I've also tried Charged with both Disease to proc Defile and Poison to proc an additional damage over time, which DKs get a 50% damage bonus on, and all 3 of them have been incredibly effective. The only reason I still have Oblivion now is just because it was the 3rd one I tried, and honestly, they're all amazing and I can't tell which one I like better. So Defile is obviously really strong because you're pumping out so many damage over times and people need to constantly heal to stay alive. So if you put Major Defile on them, that's basically increasing your damage by 30%. It doesn't have an incredibly high uptime though, even with a charge trait. The other thing is the Poison enchant, because your DK passives are increasing the damage of that by 50%, and then the Oblivion enchant. That's really helpful against Mage Zorks and Mage Blades. It just helps you execute them when they're shield stacking at 0% health. You can also run a weapon damage enchant glyph on your front bar. The reason I don't run it is because I find I can only light attack when I'm being super offensive, and at that stage it's better to have a damage enchant to help execute the opponent rather than a stats buff. But that is up to you. If you find you can get early light attacks off in a fight to open up with that increased weapon damage, then you should definitely run a weapon damage enchant. And I am a high elf for this build, but that is by no means necessary. Dark elf would also work really well for the additional flame damage, and Argonian would also be another really solid pick. It would allow you to drop Rattle Cage, run spell power pots, which would give you major sorcery, but then they'd still be acting as tripots anyway. So an Argonian Magic and DK would be a really good combination. The second to last thing I wanted to share with you guys was this screenshot here that just gives an overview of my entire build, with all the slots set out with their traits and enchants and their weights. It's also got the CP down the right hand side. I'm not going to be going into detail about that. The only thing you need to watch out for is getting 75 points into the ritual tree to unlock the Exploder passive, which increases your damage done against off balance enemies by 10%. As this build is pumping out a lot of off balance, you definitely need 75 points into ritual to get that. Now I just wanted to give you guys a quick demonstration on what the typical open-in rotation of this build would look like. So we start by using our armor buffs, bar swap into proc Flames of Oblivion. It's a bit of bar swapping, back to our destro bar, pop wings because you're coming into range of opponents. Basically all of them are going to open with a ranged ability. Wall of Elements, Engulfing Flames, and then use that first power lash that's going to proc from your lightning wall of elements, and then root with Petrify and Talons as necessary to keep them in your AoE and keep proccing more flame lashes. So just do a very quick demonstration of this troll here. So we start with armor ability, Flames of Oblivion, wings, Wall of Elements, Engulfing Flames, proc that power lash, and then root as necessary to keep them inside. And that wraps up the build video, guys. I hope I've been able to impart some knowledge to you about the Magicka Dragon Knight class, and also specifically about how my build functions. Make sure you check out the gameplay video just to make sure you can prove I'm not all smoke and no fire. Have fun out there.